Normally for the intros of these videos, I would say I watch Superman so that you don't have to, but if you want to know about this film and truly know about it, you have to watch it because I'm gonna have trouble explaining it. And I'm gonna give, I think, an unpopular opinion about this film based off of what I've seen after leaving the theaters. I was not a fan of this at all. Sorry, but let's talk about it.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.
Guys, before we get into today's video, please like and subscribe. And I gotta give a little bit of a disclaimer before this film because I have a feeling I'm gonna catch heat in the comments because a lot of people have very strong opinions about James Gunn's Superman. Now, I am not a comic book reader. I am not a superhero movie watcher, but I decided to watch Superman because James Gunn and Sean Gunn came out and said this is a political film. It's about immigrants. And if you don't like that, then you are not American. So I figured I'm gonna go watch a superhero movie for just about the first time in my life in theaters. I took my sister in, I sat down for Superman, I left confused, a little pissed off at the plot structure and what I witnessed, and I wasn't kikiing and I wasn't laughing when I watched that film. Now, that was not the experience, I'll say, for almost the entirety of the audience that I was with. I was in a very large theater. The theater was packed and everybody there was decked out in Superman gear and their comic book stuff, and they were laughing and screaming and clapping throughout the entirety of this film. So they must have caught something that I didn't see, but alas, I was the unpopular opinion of the crowd. This movie is getting really great reviews so far. However, when I was in the movie theater, I thought I was part of an AI social experiment. So take that how you will. I'm gonna try to summarize the plot of this movie. And this is why I say this is not an I Watch Superman, so you don't have to video, because I don't know that I'm capable of summarizing the millions of different elements that took place in this particular plot. I guess the general structure of this story is that Superman is going head to head with Lex Luthor, and Lex Luthor's main avenue of trying to battle Superman is not only this new technology that he's created where he's able to almost anticipate Superman's next move and battle him in a video game-like structure, but he's also going to change the public view of Superman through a multitude of different means. They're utilizing social media and our media system to make Superman into a not-so-good guy anymore. Superman is interfering in foreign affairs in order to save oppressed countries. We see this in the conflict between Baravia, which is totally not Israel or Russia, and Joranpur, which is totally not Ukraine or Palestine. Instead of working hand in hand with the government structures that are already in place, Superman sort of inserts himself into this political conflict in order to help the Joranpurians. Is that how you say it? I don't know. Lex Luthor has infiltrated the government with his corporation, Luthor Corp, so he sort of alienates Superman by convincing the government that Superman should not be inserting himself into these foreign affairs in the way that he is. Lex Luthor is working so closely with the government because he's essentially a military defense contractor. He's part of the military industrial complex because he has a technology known as nanites, which essentially make human beings into superhumans or super soldiers. They are able to morph and shift into whatever it is they want to be with these little nanobots that Lex has created. And he's created these nanites because of metahumans and super people like Superman. The Earth and America feels threatened by the existence of these metahumans because they are technically not earthly bound or earthly allegiant. When I tell you what I just explained is not even summarized, I don't even know, like 20% of this film, there are a bazillion different plot structures in this film. There are plot lines that follow Lex Luthor's creation of these essential, I guess, portals that take you to different places, like a prison that he's created or to Baravia. There's an entire plot line with Superman's original parents from Krypton where Lex Luthor steals a message that they sent to Superman as he was a baby being sent to Earth. And it turns out this message is telling Superman to actually conquer Earth and create a harem because he is better than human beings. And Lex Luthor unleashes this all on the public for all to hear. There is the entire structure of the conflict between Baravia and Joranpur, where people are inserting themselves and the media is covering it, and the Justice Gang goes in to sort of mediate this conflict and to defeat Baravia. There's relationship conflict between Lois Lane and Superman, aka Clark Kent, and they're having trouble, and Lois Lane is wanting to break up with him and also criticizing the way he's going about fighting these conflicts, but ends up staying with him and they end up in love. There's the whole false identity of Clark Kent, which you see Superman assume for maybe a few minutes of this film, and then you never get to see him as Clark Kent again. There's plot lines between Superman / Clark Kent and his parents, who are these hokey Kansas farmers with fake Southern accents who don't understand technology. There's Superman's dog, Krypto, which honestly has so many moments in this film where he's incorrectly inserting himself in something and creating problems, because that is a badass dog. And by badass dog, I don't mean super dog. I mean he's literally a bad behaved dog. He's helping Superman in battle. And quite honestly, this dog might outshine Superman and every other person in this film with how many points in this plot this dog is given the hero's course. There's another subplot with Lex Luthor's girlfriend, and Jimmy, who works at the Daily Planet. And Jimmy is like secretly seeing Lex Luthor's girlfriend, who doesn't want to be with Lex Luthor. And she's like taking selfies because she's an influencer of all the things that Lex Luthor is doing behind the scenes at Luthor Corp. And she is the one who ends up bringing down Lex Luthor, essentially. There's the Justice Gang that is weaving in and out of this story at all times with Mr. Terrific, Green Lantern, and Hawkgirl, and they're helping Superman in all these different endeavors. And the Justice Gang actually ends up being the one to insert themselves in the Germpor-Baravia conflict, and they save a bunch of people in Germpor rather than Superman doing it himself. I don't fucking know. Why do they do this? Because Superman is too busy fighting his own clone that pops up at the end of the movie. I don't know what's happening. It's like an evil twin subplot that ends up taking place because Lex Luthor was somehow able to get Superman's DNA and create a clone of him, and we only figure this out at the end of the film. Superman gets his ass beat throughout this entire film. The only thing super about him is that he happens to have these powers that for some reason he does not know how to wield. He ends up in prison in yet another subplot where he is being watched over by Metamorph, who can morph himself into anything that has ever been created ever. So he's using kryptonite on Superman to keep him in prison. And next to Superman is Lex Luthor's ex-girlfriend, which I guess Lex Luthor was mad at. So now she's in prison, just sitting next to Superman. And Superman ends up getting out of prison because he convinces Metamorph to like leave him alone with the kryptonite and reinvigorate him with created sun out of his body, because Metamorph has an alien son that Lex Luthor is holding captive, and Metamorph really wants his son back. But Metamorph didn't realize that he wanted his son back until Lex Luthor killed some Indian man right in front of Superman, because the Indian man helped Superman earlier in the story. Superman busts out of this prison, but still has the alien baby that's Metamorph's baby, because Metamorph can't hold the baby while he's morphing into other things. So Superman is floating through this, it's either called a proton river or an anti-proton river. I don't know the name of it, and it's not my fault, okay? So Superman's floating through this thing and trying to escape, and Lex Luthor's also trying to capture him, I think. But luckily, Lois Lane and Mr. Terrific show up to save Superman, but they're also creating this other subplot where the portals that Lex Luthor has opened up for his different means of travel are possibly creating a black hole that will swallow the Earth. That black hole is created, and it is creating a rift in the Earth that is eventually going to destroy the entire Earth itself, or swallow it up, I guess. But don't worry, because Mr. Terrific and Lois Lane are there to hack into this system and stop the black hole from swallowing the Earth. You would think that as a black hole is creating a huge rift in the Earth where you're literally watching water and seas split right in front of you, that the whole world would be watching, screaming, they'd be horrified. They'd be reporting on this all over the news. No, they're not, because a story gets out that Lex Luthor is actually a traitor, and that he is creating the conflict and inflaming the conflict between Baravia and Germpor for his own military-industrial complex needs. And instead of reporting on the massive rift that is going to swallow the Earth whole, they're reporting on the fact that Lex Luthor sucks and he's a traitor. This is where we get Sean Gunn, you know, that guy who said you're not American if you don't support the message of Superman. He pops up in a cameo on the news and says, I think this is one thing that liberals and conservatives can agree on. We hate Lex Luthor, or something along those lines. Good one, Sean. And I know that plot summary that I just gave you made absolutely no sense. If you were left thoroughly confused after my horrific attempt at not even a plot summary, just throwing plot points at you, I don't blame you. That's what it felt like to watch this movie. At least for me. Sorry, Superman fans. I know a lot of you are going to be like, it's just like what happens in the comics. What? You mean you all are reading this too? Now, rather than try to poorly reconstruct this film for you, which I know I am incapable of doing, I'm just going to give you my thoughts on it, my general views after having watched this, again, as somebody who is not a comic book reader and who has no nostalgic attachment to Superman. And I'll start with Superman himself. I don't know what I was expecting this character to be like, but it certainly wasn't what I saw. Superman seemed highly emotional, a little erratic, like a certified yapper. He couldn't defend himself in a sort of stoic way as I expected a Superman to do. He was constantly, and I mean constantly, getting his ass beat throughout this entire film. He gets his ass beat by Lex Luthor and the Hammer of Baravia. He gets his ass beat by his dog. He gets his ass beat by these aliens. The Justice Gang is constantly coming in and undermining him. Lois Lane is constantly undermining him. Lex Luthor is undermining him. The US government is undermining him. The media is undermining him. I'm wondering, where is the super in Superman? The dog is undermining him. I mean, the damn dog. I was expecting to get a huge dose of masculinity with this film, and I mean traditional masculinity, and I did not get that from Superman. He's getting eaten up by Lois Lane through the entirety of this film, and she comes in and saves his ass with Mr. Terrific. At one point, Lois Lane says, sort of proudly, that she was gonna break up with Superman, but she just didn't do it. I know the red pills and the manosphere are talking about women's standards these days, 6 foot, 6 figure, six pack. She didn't want Superman. In a lot of the lead up to this film, there was so much talk about how David Cornsweet was going to be this perfect mix of Clark Kent and Superman. And as I said before, he spends approximately a few minutes as Clark Kent in this film, so we don't even get that strong juxtaposition, and he doesn't really get to showcase his acting skills. And interestingly enough, I watched many an interview of David Cornsweet before this film came out to see the Superman essence of this man, because everybody was saying nobody is more Superman than David Cornsweet, and I couldn't agree more. In so many of the interviews that I watched of him, as he's going through how carefully he looked over this role, how much he really wanted to step into the shoes of Superman and make everything make sense, I went to watch the film and I thought he was not given ample space to do that. And I have a feeling it's because James Gunn, the director of this film, came and inserted so much of himself, what he finds funny, what he finds interesting into this movie, that David Cornsweet and all of his Superman-ness was just completely suffocated. Superman's personality is so stifled in this film, and the moments where he does show true personality and really burst out of himself are moments of emotional outbursts where he's maybe arguing with Lois or trying to defend a certain position he has on entering a conflict. And when he does enter a conflict, he's not doing it well. As I said, he's constantly signing himself up for things where he cannot follow through, and he's getting his ass beat. One of the huge redeeming qualities, of course, of Superman is his willingness to sacrifice for just about anything that he deems to be kind or good. He is constantly looking out for people who are victims or the innocent and utilizing his strength and his powers to save them. They also tried to give him a strong comedic edge in this film, which was a little annoying for me. It seemed as though every single character was just throwing out joke, 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 joke. I mean, if we do a joke count on this film, it is going to be high, and the payoff for these jokes is going to be really low. And I'll say it might have been just me. The audience was laughing it up. We were at the damn Comedy Store at the damn movie theater when we were watching this film, and I just did not feel it. I think it's because James Gunn's form of comedy is just not for me. It was a little bit more successful in Guardians of the Galaxy and a little less so in this film. Superman, to me, felt emasculated in this film, and I think there's no greater example of this through line for me than when Hawkgirl actually takes care of the leader of Baravia and drops him to his death. And when this Baravian leader says, "You're not going to drop me, I've had all of these conflicts back and forth, and Superman would never do this, Superman would never do that," essentially is what he's saying. She says, "I'm not Superman," and drops that man to his death. This is a moment when the audience in this theater was cheering so loud, and interestingly enough, it coincides with the girl saying, "I'm not Superman." Speaking of the leader of Baravia and him falling to his death, I guess we should talk about the political elements and the political signaling in this film, as it was a major reason why I went to watch it in the first place. It's very clear that the Baravia-Jurimpur conflict is at least trying to, not subtly, let's be honest, not subtly signal that it is in relation to Israel-Palestine and Ukraine-Russia, with Baravia being Israel and Russia and Jurimpur being Ukraine/Palestine. For me, it was a little bit more Israel-Palestine than Ukraine-Russia, and I see a lot of people echoing that sentiment online. This does seem to be an anti-Zionist film, which, hey, is no sweat off my back. It's clear that the Jurimpurians are sort of meant to exemplify Gazans with the way that they're dressed dressed, with the sort of scenes that they do at the border of these two countries, with the Jurimporians being there, not necessarily throwing rocks, but I guess some other, something or other at the Baravians, with them having tanks and guns and all of this crazy stuff. At one point, Superman says whether or not Jurimpor is an imperfect country does not give another nation right to invade it. This movie also gives some not so subtle takes on immigration. Superman is constantly referred to as alien, and I mean alien with a hard A. They were throwing out this word as if it was a slur at this man. The amount of times we got some iteration of he is not from here was overwhelming. The whole movie, you do have these somewhat bigoted characters who are saying that because Superman is from a different planet, he has a different allegiance, that he cannot understand the American way, he cannot understand our government structures, and who our people really are. And when Lex Luthor utilizes this message from Superman's parents saying, we want you to come to Earth and conquer Earth, for you are more superior than humans, it is then reinforced, this idea that this alien person or this alien superhuman can never truly understand the American way or even the earthly way. And they of course put this whole anti-immigration sentiment to bed by the end of the film, because Superman is a good guy who is trying to do the right thing, and he does want to adopt this earthly way and this culture. He ends up giving one of the most watered down, feed it to the audience on a silver spoon speeches you could possibly have about waking up as a man each day, just like everybody else, putting on one shoe and then the other. And he essentially says, I am human. That is my greatest strength, and I hope it's yours too. So yeah, those are my main things about Superman, and maybe the politics that seemingly infiltrated this film a bit. I guess on the end of that, I can just give my general notes. I walked out of this film, maybe harshly, maybe not, thinking that this thing was created by AI. I don't know. I was convinced by the end of this film. And I'm going to read you a list of things that I encountered in this film that might have led me to believe this. First of all, the speech from Superman at the end of the film about being a human. Come on now. ChatGPT might have been able to write a better one. Lex Luthor's speech about jealousy and the reason why he's evil. Come on now. Let's be so for real. Now, I also wrote down a list of moments or things that we saw on screen that led me to believe ChatGPT had to be a part of this film. At one point, you get social media selfies that are responsible for taking down Lex Luthor, as I told you. Lex Luthor has a group of monkey Twitter bots that are working in his prison to derail Superman's message and to bring him down on social media. And I mean literal monkeys that are sitting and typing on Twitter. As Crypto is, I guess, arrested and he's being held captive, they have him watching squirrels in prison on a screen to, I guess, keep him well behaved. At one moment when Superman is battling an alien, the Justice Gang comes in to bring some reinforcements, and I believe, what is his name? Green Lantern creates out of thin air a little machine that just pokes the alien in the eye multiple times. Lois Lane at one point is pouring sugar in her coffee, and I mean, she's pouring it for like 10 seconds straight, just a straight pour of sugar into the coffee. And then apparently she drinks this. Clark's parents, there's no other explanation for how those characters turned out than them being written by ChatGPT or comic books just being really lazy about writing a good pair of Kansas farmers. Lex Luthor's ex-girlfriend in prison. Just explain it to me. I don't know. The fact that we explain to Lois Lane, or Mr. Terrific explains to Lois Lane, that this portal system could open up black holes, and she goes, are you serious? Lastly, and I could give more, but I'm just throwing out what I can think of, Mr. Terrific sort of sends Lois Lane off to fly his little aircraft thing that he has. She's never flown an aircraft before, as Lois Lane is not typically associating herself with metahumans and superheroes. I think he says to her, she'll figure it out. It's intuitive and straightforward. She does. Now, I guess I should say some good things about this film. I don't want to come and completely, bring down the hammer of Baravia on this one. It did have good pacing, like the story constantly kept moving. I wasn't technically bored, just irritated throughout the entire time watching it. I did like the classic superhero message in this film that is constantly shown through Superman and his sort of uncompromising lean towards goodness. And David Cornsweet actually talks about this idea of what it means to be a good human being, and that being really summed up by the choices that we make each day and trying to make choices towards good. A lot of the fight scenes in this film were really fun, and the visuals that James Gunn played with these fight scenes, some of them shocked me. It took me off guard a little bit, and it was fun to watch. The casting of this film was good. I could see what these actors were doing with what they were given. It's just what they were given that ended up being a problem for me. I would have loved to seen a lot more chemistry between Lois Lane and Superman / Clark Kent, but I don't think that they were really given the ample opportunity to show that with the script. These two were kind of almost constantly at each other, and at one point Lois Lane is saying, like, I knew I wasn't even ready for a relationship and that this wasn't going to work. We were not given moments for them to showcase the love and the chemistry that they've built over the course of their relationship. And of course, in the major moments like Clark Kent coming to Lois Lane and saying, I'm Superman, since she's already aware of that in this film, we don't get any major building in their relationship. And it's hard to justify the I love you moment that we get at the end of this movie. But I felt that with all the other characters that I watched, they really assumed the role that they were taking on really well. And you could see there was so much more potential in these actors to go further than what they were given. I think the movie was so busy with these moving subplots and keeping pace and trying to pack everything into this one film that we didn't really get a lot of movement or character development with any of the characters. And I'll say generally, I like an unpredictable film. I don't want something that's cookie cutter where you can see it's just going to follow this archetypal movement of this particular film genre. But when I tell you, I could not tell you what was going to happen next in this film, and not in a good way. That's what I mean. It bit off more than it could chew. And I think it had some really great actors that were ready to take on these roles. It had a plot structure somewhere in there that truly could have encapsulated Superman and bringing him back in a way that is shocking for a 2025 audience and for a 2025 world. But in my opinion, I just didn't get that. And of course, I'll again say for the third time, I am not a comic book reader, so this was not going to strike any sort of nostalgia chord for me. And I have no frame of reference for what Superman is meant to be, just for what I thought he would have been. So take that all with you as you are listening to this review. As I said, the audience in this movie theater loved this film, and there must be a reason why. And I'm sure you guys are going to let me know in the comments down below. But I figured I would give my thoughts on Superman. So here they are. Drop your thoughts in the comments down below. As always, if you disagree with anything I said in this video, which may happen, drop them in the comments down below. Duke it out, but do so respectfully. I encourage healthy debate on this channel. And if you like this video, like, subscribe, click the notification bell to be notified every single time I post a video for you guys, which is every day. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye, guys.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.